Also, there is the theme of the dangerous assimilation between the Muslim majority and, which are normal people, and the criminals, really criminals, who pretend to follow Islam while distorting it completely. And we see that today, and it's really very, very dangerous. And the first one to suffer from it are the Muslims. They are the ones who are killed the most, I mean, by hundreds, by thousands. But it is a danger for everybody. This book also challenges the so-called moral duty of the Western powers to intervene into other countries. And this can be dangerous, and that this can bring a very, very negative reaction. And on that, I want to read to you something that William Dalrymple, which is a very good historian, absolutely specialized in the subcontinent, what he wrote. He wrote, the lessons of the 1857 insurrection are very clear. No one likes another people conquering their territory, depriving them of their land, or forcing them to adopt better ideas under the threat of arms. In 1857, the British discovered what the United States are learning now. Nothing radicalizes the people so greatly or undermines moderate Islam to such an extent as an aggressive intrusion. That's this English historian writes. Well, we see what's happening in Iraq, Syria, and coming in Libya. All these countries were under a secular regime. I don't mean that they were democratic, far from it, but it was much better for everybody what's happening now. Minorities were living peacefully, and now it's a total drama. So, then now I want to say that the prejudice was not only from British to Indian, but it was also from Indian to British. And I wanted my friend Elizabeth to read a quite amusing a little passage which shows how what are really these Muslim women cloistered or kept in purdah, and how the English or the Western women look at them usually, how we look at them usually.
Tell me, slide right there. Yeah. Smiling to herself, Hazrat Mahal remembers the amazement of the British ladies when the Queen Mother invited them to high tea. They only talked about their wardrobes and knickknacks, convinced these were the sole subjects accessible to these poor cloistered women, until, exasperated, the Queen Mother had begun to question them about the new Prime Minister's program, questions they had been quite incapable of answering. For these Mem Sahibs, convinced of their superiority, reclusion implies ignorance and submission. They are far from imagining the complexity of a harem and the extent to which, if one wants to go beyond the condition of mere odalisque, one must remain constantly alert and up to date with everything in order to be able to steer a clear path through the innumerable pitfalls. Reclusion is a litmus test that destroys the weak and makes the indomitable stronger. In order to attain their goals, these extraordinary women have to deploy a wealth of intelligence, subtlety, and tenacity. This is how Oriental women, these submissive creatures, whether shut up in a harem, confined to their homes, or hidden under their veils, generally control the person who imagines himself to be their lord and master.
So I also wanted to, I forgot to tell you about the divide and rule, because after the First War failed, I mean, the British understood that they had to divide the Hindu and the Muslim, because one of the things between this fight, Hindu and Muslim were fighting elbow to elbow. English tried to divide them by trying to corrupt, give money. The money was returned, they never accepted. They really fought for a national goal without any problem, religious differences. But then after, to divide them, I saw they did a lot, and I found a letter from a British viceroy to all the governors in India, telling you have to have the history book rewritten in the way to show that the Hindus have always slaughtered the Muslims and the Muslims have always slaughtered the Hindus. And they did. And that came, I mean, we arrived to this time where there was a lot of problems between the two communities and the fight, I mean, came to division of India. So they really managed it. So now I wanted also to talk about the Muslim woman. I hope you are interested, because I show in that book the real status of a Muslim woman. It seems unbelievable, but the right given to us today, the right given to the woman on the 7th century by the Quran were much higher, much more important than the rights that any Western or, I mean, Christian or Jewish woman had. And for instance, she was given by the Quran the right to inherit and the right to divorce. And when the Western woman got this right only in the 19th century. I'm not talking of how it was concretely performed, but the right, I mean, the law was that. And for quite a few years, it was done after, of course, it became too. So she also could be a witness in front of a court, and even a judge. But in the 7th century, there were Muslim women who were judge, Qadi. When in France, the woman could only be a witness in front of a court in 1938. She was, or she could be, independent financially because she was given, the woman was given for herself, not for her family, a dowry. The man, family, was giving a dowry to the woman. And she was supposed to keep this dowry. It was not for the everyday life. She was supposed to keep it. It was safety if there was anything happening. And she also could open a bank account at that time. When I think in France, the French woman could open it in 1965 only. One has to remember that the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad was a big businesswoman, Khadija. She had a lot of caravans going all over the desert, bringing goods across the desert. About polygamy, it was a lot for wives. Before, there were much more wives, and so far was a little progress. But one has to also read the Quran, where it is said, you can have 4 wives, but you have to treat all of them exactly the same, as much materially than affectively. You have to give as much love to all of them. And the verse goes on telling, as it is about impossible, you better have 1 wife. About adultery we see all the time women who are stoned, etc., which is terrible in Saudi Arabia. One has to know that adultery has nothing to do with Islam. It's not at all an Islamic punishment, even if the Saudis are doing it now. I mean, Saudis are a peculiar brand of Islam, which has been, by the way, declared as non-Islam by Al-Azhar in the 19th century. It was declared that Wahhabism was heresy.
Oh, heresy, yes. Wahhabism.
Anyway, so the punishment in the Quran as much for men as for women, for adultery, was 100 lashes, which is of course not nice at all. But to apply this punishment, there should have been 4 witnesses who saw the act being made. So unless you do it in the street, I don't know how they can see. So, you know, it shows that really it was, well, the rule was there, but it was very, very difficult to apply. And the witness, if the witness is a false witness, he is punished by 80 lashes. So about the veil, the veil has never been clearly, never, of course, never, a woman should have her face covered. That's a custom of the desert, it's a custom of Arabs, Bedouins. It's not a custom at all, it's not at all an Islamic custom, it's nowhere in the Quran. About the veil of the hair, it's not clear. It is really said that the woman has to be modest and hide her shape and to be modest. And modesty depends on the time, on the epoch. Our great-grandmother could not show their ankle. So, you know, it's not at all, I mean, in my family, I have my aunt who is very religious, she has never worn the veil. And so it is a choice. Some women prefer to wear it, but it's not a must. And so I wanted maybe my friend Elizabeth to read a part. It's a little long, but if you are interested, we'll read it to you. Oh, yes, it is a scene between a Maulvi, because at that time, one of the great fighters also against the British was a Maulvi. A Maulvi means a religious, Muslim religious man, and he was quite an extremist. We already had at that time extremists also, of course. And he was very cross that the Begum was a leader. He could not accept that a woman would be.
The Maulvi hesitates, then says disdainfully, "Maybe you are misled. Women are unfit to manage state affairs. They are too weak and too easily influenced." "Really?" scoffs the Begum. "So how is it that over the centuries, women have so often governed Indian states? Have you never heard of Razia Sultana, whose father designated her to succeed him on the throne of Delhi in 1236, as he considered her more capable than her brothers? She proved to be a skillful warrior and a remarkable administrator, re-establishing order in the country, encouraging commerce, and supporting the arts. And the great Nur Jahan, Emperor Jehangir's wife, who in the 17th century led the Mughal Empire while her husband reveled in poetry and in drink, and the sovereign of Bhopal, one of the largest Muslim principalities in India, first Kenize Begum and now her daughter, Begum Sikandar, and also the Rani of Jhansi, who at the head of her army is currently leading the revolt against the occupier, and so many others. Are they all, in your opinion, weak and easily influenced women? At the audience's laughter, Ahmadullah Shah tenses. As a good Muslim, I respect the holy book that proclaims a state governed by a woman is bound to fail. Is it not written in the Holy Quran?
It is not.
Oh, it is, I beg your pardon. It is not written in the Holy Quran. As a good Muslim, you know that very well indeed, exclaims the Begum indignantly. On the contrary, the Prophet gave women rights that no Christian, Jewish, or Hindu woman had at the time, and would only acquire centuries later. The right to inheritance, the right to dispose of her property as she sees fit, and the right to conduct business. Some women were even nominated to the position of Kenize. At least they had the decency to wear the veil as is ordained, retorts the Maulvi, throwing a nasty look at her jet black hair covered with simple translucent gauze. Yet another invention. Nowhere in the Quran does it state that the face has to be hidden, not even the hair. Women are only asked to be modest. As the Maulvi raises his eyes skyward, she orders, Mahmud Khan, bring me my Quran. A few seconds later, it is placed in her hands. Listen to the only 2 passages in the whole book that deal with the veil. And say to the believing women that they should lower their gaze and guard their modesty, that they should not display their beauty and ornaments except what most ordinarily appear thereof, that they should draw their shawls over their bosoms. And, O Prophet, tell thy wives and daughters and the believing women that they should cast their outer garments over their persons. Turning to the Maulvi, over the centuries, men have perverted the meaning of the Prophet's teachings. How could he have advised women to remain cloistered when his first wife, Khadijah, was a skilled businesswoman, and his youngest wife, Aisha, used to attend dinners with him and his friends? They discussed everything, especially politics. It is all clearly stated, confirms the Raja of Mahmudabad, but as the common people cannot read Arabic, and even amongst the Arabs there are few who understand the literary language used in the Quran, the ulemas interpret it as they please. Furious at finding himself challenged before the whole assembly, the Maulvi rises. You are insulting the ulemas. You are insulting the Holy Quran. Allah will punish you, he thunders. And thrusting aside the eunuchs on guard, he leaves the throne room as if he were fleeing the devil personified. Nicely written.
So I suppose there is some question.
Are we ready for questions and answers? Are there questions for our wonderful author? Yes.
Was there anything in your research?
Hang on 1 second, let's get you a microphone.
Thank you very much. Was there anything in your research that gave you a hint to her personality?
Yes. The fact, well, it is written that she was an unbelievable stateswoman. She had never had the experience of anything like that. But she, for instance, she gave, and she was very attentive to the poor. She gave orders, as there was a siege of Lucknow, there was a lot of problems. She gave orders that if some people were hungry, one had to take from people who are very rich to give, so that to give, distribute food to the people. She also passed laws against black marketeering, and that the people should be hanged if they were keeping the food and famishing the people to make more money. She also, when she was every day discussing, she had she was very logical, she had a very good mind. She was also, as I found documents where she was discussing military matters also. That's the main things I got. That she was, and I knew she was. I didn't tell you she was a poetess. She was a good poetess. That's how she got to really attract so much a young king, because he was a poet. He loved poetry, and they were writing poetry or telling poetries together. She was a gifted woman.
Another question? Yes.
I have a question about our